Norwich in the east of England. And thank you all very much for joining us for this 30-minute webinar. I'm Robert Jones, and I'm sure you recognise on my right my colleague Peter Schmidt-Hansen from UEA. You'll have seen him in a couple of our films, but you probably don't recognise the other two people. We have two students from the full-time Brand Leadership MSc course here at UEA, Tu and Anna. So we are here for the next 30 minutes to answer any questions that you've got. A couple of people have sent in questions in advance, but if you want to send in questions now, we will respond to them on the step in the course on the Future Learn platform, or by tweeting using the hashtag FLBrands. So any questions about anything, preferably something to do with branding, but about anything to do with branding, we're happy to answer as best we can. So Tu and Anna, we're almost at the end of the first term, aren't we?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It gets past so quickly. How's it been so far?
As for me, it's really, really busy, but it's really interesting. So, because you can feel this like balance between being really busy and but you know that it's going to pay off. So it's really good feeling. Good.
And so you come to us with a bit of a design background, don't you? So you bring some special skills to this.
So I feel like it's busy in a different way, because now we talk more about strategy instead of visual thinking. But I think it's good to have like a visual background, because that helps with like translating what you have. Also, it's like why I'm very busy is like it's in a good way. So we learn new thing every day. So.
I think one of the things that constantly strikes Peter and me is that people sometimes say you can't possibly spend a whole year doing nothing but branding. Whereas the truth is you could spend 3 years doing such a broad topic with no clear boundaries around this. You can go almost anywhere under the heading of branding, and it's a kind of almost limitless subject. So we always feel that we're squashing lots of stuff into the time. Anyway, so that's a little bit about the course here. So one of the questions that one of you sent in is multi-sensory branding. Multi-sensory branding, the future for brands. About multi-sensory smell and taste and touch.
Well, the short answer to that question is absolutely yes. It really is, because I think what's happened in the past is that brands have been very successful at providing us with products. And nowadays, what they have to do is they've got to go one step further than that. It's actually about the brand experience. So if we look at the sort of 20th century, it's all about providing products. I think the 21st century, the story of branding is going to be defined by experiences. And of course, when we talk about experiences, we talk about senses. I think it's partly a very simple question of points of difference, that brands have to stand out from other brands. So brands that can provide something extra, in terms of touch, taste, smell, feel, whatever it happens to be, can have that difference. But I think it's also about building deeper, more meaningful relationships with us. And of course, when we think about our interactions with brands, it's having a real deep interaction with them that leads to loyalty. People will forget what you say, but they won't forget. You won't forget how a brand makes you feel. So it's all about that sort of sensory side of things, which is really important from now on. So definitely, yes.
Definitely, yes. Now, you two guys, as your homework last week, visited some supermarkets with your kind of antennae tuned into multi-sensory things going on there. What struck you in? I'm not sure which supermarkets you went to. Were they upmarket or downmarket?
Downmarket.
Downmarket. So
Upmarket.
And you were upmarket. Okay. So how does that differ in terms of taste and smell and touch and all of those things?
Well, thank God I looked at this lecture yesterday, so I still can emphasize on kind of idea about it. I think this creating different touch points as visually and like sensory, it's really important. But in terms of Aldi that we visited, they're not doing pretty well, because they're not trying to appeal to customers that are not actually buying something from them. So I think they have to work better on these kind of parts.
So multi-sensory branding, it can be a way of seducing customers into buying more.
Yeah.
And you're saying Aldi's not doing that. I'm guessing Waitrose, the upmarket supermarket, probably is.
I remember one thing very clear is that they have this section where they have fresh bakery. And that is sort of like, it makes me want to buy stuff right away. And it's the feeling that they create is sort of very homey. You feel like you're at home when you're at the place. And I think it's not just the visual, because everything's so clean. But it's also the sound, the smells.
Right.
Yeah, also the music and the Waitrose is another thing, like that is attracting and that is communicating the idea in a different way, because sometimes it's not just about the idea, but how you communicate it and through what channels. So it's also really important.
I was just going to say, interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, one of our brand leadership students did a dissertation on sensory branding, particularly focused on what it's like to engage with brands when you're blind, when you've got no vision. And of course, you might think that that's quite a niche area that most people can see. So, why should we investigate what it's like to interact with a brand if you're blind? But it actually goes much further than that. If you can provide a good sensory experience for someone who's blind, it sort of follows on that you can produce a really good sensory experience for someone who doesn't have any visual impairment as well. So it's all about really, really improving the brand experience. It was a very, very innovative piece of work that the student did.
Indeed it was. Yes. I mean, I think this multi-sensory thing is incredibly important. If my experience in Wolfonians is anything to go by, brand consultancies are probably not quite as up to speed on this as we should be, because we tend to come from a very much visual heritage. So we're full of people who are very good at stimulating the visual senses, but we probably spend a lot less time thinking about taste and touch and smell. However, I think that's all going to change, and the big buzzword at the moment is customer experience. And the idea that you can design every element of the customer experience, and we're going to see a lot more of that, I think, in the next.
And I think you talk about the agencies there. I think there's been quite a big growth in experience agencies now.
Absolutely.
It used to be sort of advertising agencies, and then it was advertising agencies and brand agencies, and now it's all about the customer journey and the customer experience. So new agencies, research-based agencies are opening up.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think I was just talking to another student about this just before this, that there is a risk that conventional brand consultancies like Wolfonians are being threatened at the top. And I shouldn't use top and bottom, but at one end and the other end of what we do, at the end where we're helping clients think about purpose, vision and strategy, then why not go to a management or a strategy consultancy for that? If you're thinking about the detail of the multi-sensory customer experience, then as you say, why not go to a specialist experience design consultancy? So I think there's a big challenge for brand consultancies. Which direction to go in, or is it both? And if so, how do you establish a role in a world where there are so many more different kinds of creative consultancy around? So it's kind of interesting, I think. Okay. The second question that we've got here, I think, builds on the first one. Do you think there's more emotional engagement with the consumer when using multi-sensory branding techniques? And I think we touched on this already, but this is about unlocking emotions.
Absolutely, and I think if we think about the way in which brands interact with us and we make decisions about brands, some of our decision making is very cognitive. It's about using the brain, how we think about a particular brand. That's all about performance and value, whether a particular brand provides good value for us. But a huge amount of our interaction with brand is through the heart. How we feel about the brand. When we look at certain types of brand, luxury branding, for example, it's all about how it makes us feel. Buying a particular luxury coat might not provide a better performance than a cheaper coat, but it might make us feel in a certain way. So there is that emotional connection, which is really important. I think the brands which are really successful are the ones that are rich in both sort of cognitive or head aspects, thinking aspects, and those that are also rich in the heart. Now, of course, not all brands are equal, but the ones that do emotionally engage in us, they're the ones that are, I think, in the long term are going to be more successful because they're the ones that we remember and they're the ones we talk to other people about. You know, can't get too excited perhaps about a functional brand, you know, something which just performs, but something which makes us feel excited or interested or brave or confident or sexy. They're the ones we're going to talk to other people about.
You know, actually, I think that even there shouldn't be any distinction between functional products and products that offer you emotional connection or some experience, because people got so used to it, you know, they're expecting that it's going to be the good quality or value for money or whatever. But the thing that they're going to remember is their feeling and their emotions that they've got by buying the product or by using it. So it's going to be this experiential part should be within each category, not only to something that is, you know, distinct to product or for experience. It's going to be like something altogether.
Yeah.
I also think that it's like, it has to do with decision making. Like most of our decision, even buying decision, is like very irrational, even though we think that it's rational.
Indeed.
And that's why like brand is the thing that appeals to the irrational side. So if you make a brand that sort of connects to a feeling or an emotion, so when you go to a supermarket and look at the range of all the products there, you sort of gravitate toward those that sort of connects to you, instead of thinking about all the pricing, is it good for me?
So, because I'm just thinking about this over the weekend actually, because there's a lot of unspoken anxiety in buying, isn't there? Particularly if it's a big purchase. And we've just bought a little cottage in the country, not far from here in Norwich. And the car that I've got is a little BMW, which is really a city car. And I'm thinking maybe we need something that's a bit higher off the road and all that stuff. It's particularly this weekend when the roads are incredibly muddy and wet and everything. But choosing what car to get, because all cars are good now. There aren't any cars that don't work. They're all good. Where do you start? And I have to say, my starting point this weekend was with a brand that's not a car brand, which is Top Gear. So I got the Top Gear guide to all the cars that you can buy. And then the kind of a rational bit kind of steps in, because you have a look at them and evaluate them and you see which ones score highest. And the two that come out best for me are a Nissan Qashqai or a Skoda Yeti.
Yes.
And then that made me think about the difference between rational and emotional decision making, because thinking about the Skoda, the Skoda, emotionally I quite like to get one because it's recommended by this other brand that I have an emotional relation to, Top Gear. And I love Slovakia, and we've had lots of holidays in Slovakia, so a car that comes from Slovakia is something that I feel is an emotional bond to, so I'm rather pleased that it came scored so highly. But then you remember that Skoda is just part of VW. It's not really Skoda, it's just VW with a different name on the front. And then you think about, do I want to buy a car from a company that systematically deceives governments about test results? So you're torn, aren't you? Because the brain is saying, no, don't buy this, eliminate this car instantly. And the heart is saying, no, I like the idea of this car. It's quite a cute looking car. It comes from Slovakia, does all the things I wanted to do. And it's sort of torn, and I know which way I will go in the end, which is on rather than red.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the case, and that really comes back to what we were saying here, that feeling is so important, isn't it? But I think also, I mean, if you take, we're talking now about emotion in terms of the brand product itself, but of course emotion also engages in terms of brand communication. When we see an epic advert which really touches our heart, you know, of course we're coming up to Christmas now, and the big talking point across the whole country at the moment is the John Lewis Christmas ads, the Sainsbury's Christmas ads, and those really play to our emotions. There's very few Christmas ads these days that sort of say, you know, we can sell everything we need for Christmas, and we can buy mince pies here, Christmas pudding, turkey here. It's all about the emotional journey. So when we think about emotion, I think we've also got to think about communication, not just the product itself.
I wonder though whether you could overdo it, and whether brand owners might imagine that there is more potential for their customers to have strong emotional feelings than there really is. Because do we ever really love a supermarket? Can we, and I know supermarkets try to trigger a deep emotional response through the advertising, but can that ever work, do you think? Do we have room in our hearts for all of these companies?
I feel I'm not personally attached to any sort of brand. I feel like younger people nowadays they are very hard to be loyal to a brand.
Okay.
Actually, because like we think about a brand in terms of like very functional. Maybe we're attached. We like some brand more than others, but we are not totally attached to a brand the way that when you compare it to Turkey to the market that offer like better product, we will switch right away.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's the same for you.
Yes, I think that basically because the market is so saturated and there's so much choice of everything, and supermarkets in particular. So if you are unhappy with something, you wouldn't just give it another chance. You just switch to the competitor.
I think that might be the reason why they start competing on price as well, because they feel like they try to go for the emotional side, but I feel like they still like back up a little bit and think about what if we lower a price, maybe it work better. So
you have to be able to play both cards, the emotional and the rational. And I suppose with something like a supermarket, most of the year they're playing the rational card, the price card all the time. And then at Christmas they think, oh, this is the moment that we can tug at a few heartstrings, and then we'll go back to pricing in January. So I guess that's how it works. But you make a really scary point too, because if it's true that younger people are not likely to be loyal to brands, there's lots of evidence, isn't there, that brand loyalty is declining year after year. The whole point of brands is to make people loyal. So what does that mean for brands and branding? Is there there be no role for it in the future?
Well, that's a big question. I think the answer is yes, there will be a role for it, but I think what brands have to do is they've got to become far more agile. And we're seeing what's happening at the moment, that technology is moving on really, really quickly, the way we communicate is moving on really, really quickly, and brands simply can't stand still. I think if, as you say, to people are no longer going to be loyal to a particular brand, it's important for an individual brand to make sure that it doesn't give any consumer a reason to be disloyal. So it's always got to change. I mean, brands cannot stand still, so it's got to adopt new technologies, it's got to adopt new ways of engaging with consumers, it's got to be very agile. And of course, one of the good things is now that because we've got so much computer integrated design, computer integrated manufacture, and because of these brand experience agencies we talked about earlier, all of a sudden brands have got the tools with which to be able to have this agility.
Maybe people are also expecting brands to move to another level. As you said, that loyalty is something that is like the purpose of the brands. So to create this deeper and more meaningful relationship with customers, for brands it's definitely not the easy thing to do. But I think many issues are related to trust issues. Again, because young people are not loyal, young people are expected even higher level of engagement with brand. So maybe it's going to be on a different level when integrated in your life and making life easier, so that maybe when it's going to be working like that, you're not going to switch to another.
I think, because the world is so complex these days, there's so much going on, that actually there is an argument that says, well, actually, we could perhaps become more loyal to brands because the cost of switching, so you just can't be bothered anymore. If something works adequately, that's fine. I'll keep my life simple. I'll stick with this brand. I won't worry about it.
What do you think? Can you imagine becoming more brand loyal as you get older? Can that happen?
I actually think that is a really good point about like the cost of switching. Like with so many things that you have, so many decisions you have to make. I think it's maybe easier to sort of stay with a brand, not because you are loyal, because it's more convenient.
I think certainly at my age, in my late 50s, I'm trying to simplify my life. So I tend to be quite brand loyal, or at least not switch.
Yes. Yes.
And of course, brands know me very well now, of course, because every time I buy something online, or every time I do a transaction in a physical shop, they're collecting data about me. They're able to send me special offers to keep me loyal, or to build in switching costs to our relationship.
Yes. And in fact, a lot of nonsense is spoken about loyalty, isn't it? And loyalty cards are not really that; they're just data collection mechanisms. And somebody who used to be a colleague of mine at All Friends said, "Loyalty is for dogs." And there might be something more important and more valuable than loyalty, particularly as retailers consider loyalty or airlines.
Yeah, and really, it's sometimes a very, very simple matter, of convenience. We were talking about supermarkets earlier, and it just so happened that at one time my commute happened to go past one particular supermarket at Tesco's, so I always shopped at Tesco's. When I then changed jobs.
But you weren't loyal to Tesco.
No, it wasn't. It was just convenient.
Yeah.
But when I moved house, it just so happened that my journey took me past a Waitrose, so I started using that. And no particular sort of strong loyalty. It's just a matter of convenience.
And from the point of view of Tesco, that's all they care about, the fact that you did go there every week. So what matters to the brand owner is not, in a way, is not that emotional loyalty. It's not how loyal you feel, it's how loyal you act.
Yes,
matters.
Yes. And I mean, you could, let's take two other brands, McDonald's and Burger King. You could, for example, ask someone, which one do you prefer? And they might say, yeah, I really strongly prefer McDonald's. And then you ask them, well, do you regularly eat McDonald's? He says, oh, no, I go to Burger King. Why do you go to Burger King? Well, it's because it's just around the corner from my house, so and it's too far to go to a McDonald's. They might prefer McDonald's, but they go to
Okay, well, we are 20 minutes past the hour, so I'm just seeing whether any more questions come in. No, okay, well, we have one more question, so we'll answer that and then wrap up, which is how can companies use social innovation to go beyond the consumer's expected buying experience? So social innovation, I guess that means teaming up with consumers, involving consumers in developing new products and services. There's a lot spoken about this at the moment. I don't know, maybe more words than action on this subject.
I think we're at the start of something. I mean, you can look at certain brands and they have engaged with customers. I mean, in the past, we used to have brands which talk at us and said, buy me, I'm better. But now, because things like Facebook, for example, many brands have still got their websites, but they've also got a Facebook page now. And on that Facebook, it allows interaction. So we can have this two-way conversation. So nothing particularly new there, but I think it's a matter of how brands actually use that information. They partly do it just simply to try and build a relationship and have a conversation, but then they can more actively involve people in building the brand, getting ideas, getting suggestions, and so on. And I think that's one of the things that will happen more, and that will happen through as you say, things like Facebook. It can also be very specific, campaign-based, like competition. A few years ago, we had Walker's, the Christmas brand, asking consumers to design a new flavour of brand. And there was a big incentive to do so. The winner would get £50,000 plus, I think, 1.5% share of profits. So that was a significant prize and significant incentive. They're now doing it again, actually. They're getting people to vote to bring back certain flavours. So there's that side of things as well. So it is now possible for brands to get involved. There's another particular brand of T-shirts, threadless, where people can design T-shirts, the community, the threadless community, can vote on those designs, and the winning design is produced and sold with, again, the designer getting a share of the profit. So it's a more democratic model of the brand, I guess, which is where we sort of own the brand a bit more, perhaps. So
Have you guys ever helped companies innovate as consumers?
The company.
I can say I've been on Threadless before.
You've been on Threadless, okay.
I don't know, there are so many disruptors in the industry because they're changing the way completely that we used to go to shopping, to shops, the physical shops or whatever. But I think now it's because brands and brand experience are so shaped by consumers and what they want. So many companies and many brands, they have to take into account what people actually want from them. And in order to stay competitive, they have to listen, to analyze, and constantly look up what is going on Twitter, on Facebook.
Well, I think that's it, isn't it? And again, another of my, sorry to go on about my weekend, but another weekend experience is Panasonic smart TV. Watching television just through the internet. We have no aerial or satellite or cable. Should be very straightforward, but the whole thing is so badly designed as a user interface that it is completely baffling. Now, 10 years ago, I would have patiently phoned up Panasonic to try to get an answer to this question, how do I make it work properly? But now, of course, there's a much better way of doing it, which is to tweet. Because now my complaint is public, so they've got to do something about it now.
Like I've got, actually yesterday I was checking flights from Moscow to London to come back here, my exam period, and I found out that the price is actually really high. And I tweeted about it, and EasyJet replied like, thanks Anna for your feedback. We appreciate about your comments about our pricing, and we're gonna do something about it.
They're going to do something about it.
I don't think so personally, but at least you got something.
Okay. Well, if they do, that is social innovation, isn't it? But this is really different from even 5 years ago when Twitter wasn't commonplace. That this is now a much more powerful way for consumers to influence what companies do.
And of course, it goes deeper than that even. That there's this tyranny of transparency. That there's no hiding place now. You're talking about Panasonic TV, and you're talking about EasyJet. But I mean, any company which does something bad, wrong, immoral, they're going to get found out, and someone's going to tweet about it, or going to send a picture or a little film about it somewhere around the world. So there's no hiding place for brands. Brands have to be really honest now, and I think that sort of harks back or links back to this idea of social innovation.
Indeed, and then there's a really interesting question about that, which is what about luxury brands, which depend on mystique, on people not understanding what they're... And this is true of Apple. Apple is incredibly secretive. You can't easily find out what's going on inside Apple. They're resisting the tyranny of transparency. But can they carry on doing that? And if they can't, then does that mean the end of luxury because you can't keep secrets anymore?
I think luxury is based on a number of things. I mean, partly it's this mystique, but it's also other things as well. It's also history, heritage, authenticity. And in fact, sometimes brands are luxury brands are completely open about themselves, saying, look, this is where we source our raw materials from. This is luxury, this is the highest quality, and they actually invite people in. So you've got brands like Patek Philippe, for example, the watchmaker, and they are completely transparent about how they make their luxury watches because it is part of the joy of owning a watch like that, to see the craftsmanship that goes into it. They've got a museum in Switzerland, in Geneva, of the Patek Philippe brand, and people can come and visit them and so on. So actually, I think in contrast to the view you put forward, I'd say transparency is actually fantastic for luxury brands because it shows how good they really are.
Interesting. So it's a way of demonstrating authenticity, which is another big buzzword in branding, isn't it? Great. Okay. Well, I think we're more or less at 30 minutes. So thank you very much for listening in, asking questions. Thank you very much to Tu and to Anna. And from Peter and me, goodbye.
Thank you.